think we can start now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Arturo Hernandez, and I'm a staff attorney at the Law Project of the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. I work in a variety of cases here at CCH, but one of the areas I spend a big part of my time on is expungement and sealing work. We will have some time at the end of the presentation for questions people may have, and I kindly ask that you please wait until the end to ask any questions. Also, if you have specific questions about a case you might have or someone that you know or work with, I ask that you not share that information here, but instead that you or the person that may need assistance call our office so that we can conduct an intake. Thank you. And I also want to introduce my colleague, Beth Malik.
Hello, sorry.
Okay, so I think a good place to start is to discuss what is a criminal record. So when someone gets arrested or they're charged with a crime and have to go to court, a criminal record is formed. This criminal record can be seen by landlords, employers, and even the public. Having a criminal record can have a big impact on someone's life. It can prevent them from getting an apartment or getting a job. What can someone do if they have a criminal record or they don't know what is on the criminal record? Well, if someone was arrested in Chicago, they can obtain the record of arrest and prosecutions, the rap sheet, and they can get it from the Chicago Police Department at 3510 South Michigan Avenue. So the rap sheet is a document that has information about any arrests or offenses they have been charged with, along with the outcomes. Getting the rap sheet is helpful if the person is not sure what they're arrested for or what the outcome of the case was if they were charged. When getting the CPD rap sheet, the person can also get information regarding their Illinois statewide criminal history. The outcome of the case is very important for sealing and expungement purpose, which I plan to cover in a little bit. So what is expungement? If someone was arrested or charged with an offense, but they were not convicted, they can ask a judge to expunge that record. If the record is expunged, that record can only be viewed in very limited circumstances. This can be helpful in looking for an apartment or applying for a job. When can someone request their criminal record be expunged? Well, it depends on the outcome of the case. Not all records can be expunged. As I noted here, there are some exceptions. So then what is sealing? If somebody was convicted of an offense, then they are not able to expunge this record. But they may still have another option that can help. They may request a judge to seal the record. Sealing a record limits who can view the record. A sealed record can still be seen by some employers, but it can still be helpful in getting some jobs or applying to an apartment. Private landlords and many employers cannot view sealed records. However, some records are not eligible for sealing, and I noted here sealing exceptions. Okay. So as many of you are aware, possession of cannabis for personal use is now legal in Illinois as of January 1st, 2020. And Illinois residents may possess up to 30 grams of flower, 5 grams of concentrate, or 500 milligrams of cannabis-infused products such as edibles. For non-Illinois residents, half of the above. However, there are still some restrictions on the use of cannabis. It's still illegal to use cannabis in public, such as at parks, on a bus or train, in a car, or near children. A person can have cannabis in their car, but only if it's in a secured, sealed container that cannot be reached while the car is moving. Driving under the influence of cannabis is not permitted. Someone was previously arrested but not convicted for a minor cannabis offense involving 30 grams or less, in a misdemeanor class 4 felony, not involving a count for violent crime, then the record should be automatically expunged by the state by the following deadlines. So depending on when they're arrested, there's deadlines. If a person qualifies for automatic expungement and they went to court after being arrested, then they shouldn't have to do anything. These records should be expunged and should no longer show up on background checks. If someone was convicted of a minor cannabis offense, the conviction will be reviewed by the Illinois State Police and the Prisoner Review Board. And then they might be given a pardon, although it's not guaranteed by the government. If someone was convicted of a minor cannabis offense, they may also request a judge vacate the conviction and expunge this record. So what if someone has been arrested or found in court for possession or use of cannabis? They may want to seek legal advice to see what their options are. So New Leaf, Illinois, which CCH is part of this network, may be able to help them with expunging their cannabis records. So New Leaf, Illinois is a network of nonprofit organizations throughout Illinois that may be able to provide free legal advice or representation to these individuals with cannabis records. So these individuals should fill out the brief intake form directly through New Leaf, Illinois. And I have included some information here. So they can go directly to the New Leaf, Illinois website, fill out this brief form, or there is a number to call. You can call 855-963-9532. So housing and criminal records. How can sealing or expunging your criminal records help with obtaining housing? So under the Cook County Human Rights Ordinance, criminal records that have been sealed or expunged cannot be considered when the person applies for housing. The Illinois Human Rights Act also prohibits denial of housing because of an arrest record, which includes expunged and sealed records. Right. So for people in Cook County who have criminal records, even if they're not expunged or sealed, they may have protection as well under the Just Housing Amendment of the Cook County Human Rights Ordinance. So the Just Housing Amendment, there's a two-step tenant screening process. So the person must first be determined pre-qualified before they can get a criminal background check conducted on them. So only after the tenant has been determined to be pre-qualified can any criminal convictions that are more than 3 years old, so I'm sorry, less than 3 years old, can be considered. So if a conviction is more than 3 years old, it cannot be considered. There are some few exceptions there. So convictions that are not more than 3 years old can be considered when denying an applicant for housing, but an individualized assessment must still be performed before doing so. So what factors can be considered in the individualized assessment? I'll go over some: the nature, severity, and recency of the conduct underlying the individual's specific convictions, the nature of the individual's sentencing, the number of the individual's convictions. So I have here factors that are considered before a decision is made. So even after the individualized assessment is performed, an applicant can still be denied if the individualized assessment shows that denial based on the criminal conviction is necessary to protect against a demonstrable risk to personal safety and or property of others affected by the transaction. However, before getting denied, the applicant must be provided with a copy of the tenant selection criteria, a copy of the background check used, and get an opportunity to dispute whether the information is relevant or accurate. If they are denied, they must be notified why, and the applicant's criminal history should not be shared. Right, so criminal records and employment. In Illinois, the Job Opportunities for Qualified Applicants Act prohibits employers covered by the act, so those with 15 or more employees, from asking applicants about their criminal history until after they are deemed qualified and get an interview, or until conditional offer of employment is made if the employer is not interviewing applicants. The Chicago Human Rights Ordinance covers employers with less than 15 employees and provides these protections above. So there are some exceptions, and which I have listed here. It's mandated by federal law or state law to reject applicants with certain criminal records. Person's criminal record would preclude them from getting a bond, and person would be licensed under the EMS Systems Act. And the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance has almost identical exceptions as these above. So the Illinois Human Rights Act prohibits employers covered by the act, again, those with 15 or more employees, from refusing to hire someone because of the arrest record, which includes expunge and seal records. However, some employers can request information regarding a sealed felony conviction and use that information when making a hiring decision. Okay, so now I'll open it up to any questions people may have.
It looks like we had one question about records from another state.
So the law that was discussing about sealing and expungement pertain to Illinois records.
I would just add that usually, like for criminal records in another state, you'd probably have to look to the laws of that state around sealing and expunging those records, and probably contact a legal service provider in that state.
We had another question about Class X cases. Are they able to be expunged?
I would have to look into that and I can get back to that person.
Don't think we have any other questions right now, unless anyone else wants to add any questions in the chat or the Q&A.
Someone's asking again for the phone number for a New Leaf, Illinois. I don't know if we can put it in the chat, or do you want to just read it out?
Yes, I can put it in the chat.
Great. And Arturo, there's a question about the costs associated with expunging records.
Yes. Yes, there are costs associated with requesting a petition to expunge or seal a record. But depending on the person's financial situation, they may be eligible to request a waiver of those fees.
So if you're low income, you can request a fee waiver the same as you would with another court case to have the fees waived.
I think unless anyone has any other questions, we could.
There's another question in the Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
How long is the expungement and or sealing process, paperwork, etc.? Do you want to answer that? Depends.
It depends. It depends where the arrest or conviction occurred. So it could even depend on Cook County. So not just like Cook County versus another county. There's different districts in Cook County and they operate sort of in different timelines. So it depends on where it's filed. Whether the state objects, there's other factors that determine how long the process will take. So the state's attorney has an opportunity to object and there might be a hearing schedule. So there depends on a couple of things.
Chicago takes a long time. There's been a lot of backlog due to COVID. And there's another question in the chat. Is there an organization that can help with the paperwork?
Yes. So CCH does do some sealing expungement work. So we may be able to assist somebody. So if someone needs assistance or is interested or in trying to seal or expunge the record, they can reach out to us and we can conduct an intake and then determine if the person is eligible, and then also explain the process and going about trying to request that that's record be sealed or expunged.
I'm going to put our 800 number in the chat, Arturo. So people can reach out to us for an intake that way. And if we're not able to help, I think we can, there are other legal service providers that in the area that also do sealing expunging work. So if we aren't able to help, we can also refer folks to other people that can help with the paperwork as well. And one thing I do want to mention too, a good first step is to go get your rap sheet, or if you're a service provider, to go get your rap sheet. It helps us with the intake process if folks already have it. And I'm going to put the CCH intake line in the chat. And I can just read it out too. It's 800-940-1119. So if you'd like to call CCH, we are 800-940-1119.
There was also one more question. Does someone need legal representation during this process, and does CCH have resources in Champaign County?
Someone does not need legal representation, however, it's highly recommended. I would recommend they do seek legal representation in this process.
And Land of Lincoln, I believe, I did put the CCH intake line in the chat. And Land of Lincoln, I think, is the legal service provider for downstate. And they do sealing and expunging work. I don't have their number offhand, but you could probably Google it. And I can put at least the name of it. It's Land of Lincoln Legal Services.
Patricia also put in the chat that New Leaf, Illinois can help with a referral in other parts of the state.